The Florida Panthers have to overcome the loss of their captain, possibly for the season. The LA Kings' greatest player ever announces that this will be his last season. And the Buffalo Sabres hope they have enough scoring to get into the playoffs and end their long playoff drought. We've got that and a lot more on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Gil Martin here. Welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the host of Locked On Florida Panthers, the Mondo man himself, Armando Velez. And Armando, I wish it was under happier circumstances for the Florida Panthers, but Aleksander Barkov, surgery on the injured knee, most likely out for the season. How big of a blow is this for the Florida Panthers' hopes of three-peating?
It's a huge blow for the Panthers and their chances to three-peat. And now this changes the conversation on how the Panthers really truly approach the regular season. I mean, the timeline that the Florida Panthers gave was 7 to 9 months. But if you're looking at the minimum when it comes to Barkov being out, that could be April that he could be coming back. Yeah, the Panthers don't have the benefit of not having a playoff cap this time around because of the changes to what the NHL did for this season and even in their upcoming CBA. But this is a huge blow. They were already without Matthew Tkachuk. They're already going to be without Tomas Nosek at least through December for both of them. So this is tough for the Panthers, and now everybody's elevated up a line. The whole third line that was outstanding for the Panthers of Lundell, Luostarinen, and Marchand. They're now your second line. First line is now Bennett, Reinhart, and Verhaeghe. So now this makes the bottom six a little bit weaker for the Panthers. So it's gonna be truly tough. Barkov is the heart and soul of the team. He's also the heart and soul of Finnish hockey. This is going to be Aleksander Barkov's first time returning to the Olympics since 2014. He was so young the first time he went to there, and he also got hurt during those Olympics too for Team Finland. So this is and the fact that Barkov's in his prime and he's missing this, I mean, you just feel for the guy that he's not going to get this opportunity, and it's going to be tough for the Panthers, no question about it.
Who is hurt most in this lineup by Barkov's absence? What's the ripple effect?
It's not really so much. I think it's that's a tough question, Gil, to be honest. The bottom six is definitely the one who's more hurt. If I had to choose one person, it's probably Evan Rodriguez, because he's shifted. He's usually playing wing, and he's played center from time to time, especially in the 2024 playoffs. But he's currently filling the third line center position for the Florida Panthers. They didn't shift Eetu Luostarinen into the wing, even though he played it during his when he was first with the Florida Panthers. Sam Reinhart hasn't played center, since really the trade from Buffalo to Florida. Although he does take faceoffs on the PK and on the power play as well whenever it's on the right side of the ice. But Evan Rodriguez, he's going back to that position, a position that he doesn't usually really play, at least during his time with Florida. So it's going to be an adjustment period for the Panthers here. But I do want to add this on whom it may benefit. It may benefit someone like Anton Lundell, because he's learned so much from Aleksander Barkov. He lived with him when he first came from Liga in Finland over to the U.S. to play for the NHL. And never had to play in the AHL for the Panthers when he first signed his ELC. So he's been ready from the start to play for the Panthers. He's a second line center playing. He's been playing third line, but he's now being elevated in that position. But this could really help Anton Lundell. But I think the part of the ice that it hurts the most is more likely the penalty kill, because Barkov and Reinhart being that 1-2 punch, maybe is it going to be Sam Reinhart and Anton Lundell? And thankfully for the Panthers, getting a Brad Marchand who could play those PK minutes, that at least adds another player to your lineup to play, to at least roll those units out. And during the summer, Gil, when we were talking about Matthew Tkachuk's injury and the surgery, we were talking about how this helps the Panthers keep their players and with Jesper Bokus and Evan Rodriguez. Now they're likely to finish the full season with the Panthers and even play for the Panthers even next year, because they both have a year under their contracts after 2026. So it's also opportunity for them to stay on the roster as well.
Obviously, if he's on LTIR for the season, it does free up some cap space. Will the front office of the Florida Panthers try to bring somebody in to try to upgrade where they're at right now for the season?
I don't think it will be immediately because if you have the chance to bring an Aleksander Barkov back, you at least weigh those options, and at least you want to remain hopeful. And thankfully for Barkov, this happened now instead of November, December, where the 7 to 9 month timeline would be around May. And there's no guarantee that you're going to get to the second round or the Eastern Conference Final to begin with. According to Puckpedia, the most cap space that the Panthers could use if Aleksander Barkov is designated to return is $3.8 million of it to fill the roster and at least buy a little bit onto the roster for the Panthers. They could try some retained salary routes, but the thing is, the Panthers don't really have assets to use in order for trades. So, but do the Panthers go after someone like Evgeny Malkin, who's in his last year of his contract with the Pittsburgh Penguins, but at the same time, Kyle Dubas is also going to do right by his players. If his players don't want to stay, like him and Sidney Crosby, they're going to do right by them. There's also possible connections to JG Pageau of the New York Islanders. Jack Roslovic is still a free agent. Could they bring him in on a 1-year deal? So that's one player that you won't need to give up assets as far as to bring in to the roster to at least fill in the center position, at least temporarily.
So what are the keys now to success? You're in a difficult division. It's a deep division. You said, getting out of the first round isn't a given. Is even making the playoffs a given after losing Barkov?
Well, nothing's a given now, especially down your best center and your best winger in Matthew Tkachuk. So nothing is now. We have to really watch this regular season and really go on a game by game, week by week basis, all that. But I do really believe that the Panthers' floor ceiling without Barkov is still pretty high. I'm not ready to say three-peat Stanley Cup championships or even Eastern Conference champions right now for the Panthers, but I do believe that the depth that they have built throughout the year, they could at least try to overcome, at least get into the dance, and hopefully get Aleksander Barkov back by the time that mid-April does come around. So this is going to be a heck of a challenge for the Panthers. I mean, we're really going to see what Sam Bennett is truly made of now being the top line center. I mean, a lot of Panther fans were thankful that Bill Zito was able to get him re-signed. And I mean, yeah, the last year was the most points that he had ever had in his career. But I was saying that in the first maybe 3 or 4 years of that contract, that it was going to at least look great for the Panthers. And so hopefully this is really where he's going to really make his $8 million here. So we're going to truly see how impactful that loss truly is. And we won't really see that until we play games. But he's not replaceable. That's the thing. He's not.
And who steps up leadership wise? Because he's your captain. He's heart and soul. Who steps up in that role?
I'll take Paul Maurice's line from what he said over the weekend is Sam Reinhart doesn't necessarily wear an A, but he can be a captain anywhere in the NHL. Yeah, those the Tkachuk wears an A as well. Aaron Ekblad wears one, but you're gonna probably see Sam Reinhart really take a true leadership role with the Florida Panthers. He's their best defensive forward for them. So that is the one player who's gonna at least and it's funny because character personality traits, both those guys, Barkov and Reinhart, are two guys who don't really talk too much, but they do it by their actions and they know when to do it at the appropriate when it comes to even when they do win and they win ugly. Those are guys who know when to step in and just say, hey, these are habits that are not going to help us win through and when we get to April. So this locker room and the culture overall of the Florida Panthers, they are very calculated when it comes to knowing when to speak up, whether things are going well or when they're not going so well.
Well, it's going to be leadership is going to be tested. We'll see how it goes. Armando, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
They can find me on X at MondoMan12. They can follow the show Locked On Florida Panthers podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. And the season has definitely gotten a lot more interesting for the Florida Panthers, as now we got to navigate things without two of the best players. So make sure to follow along, because I'm looking forward to what this team is truly made of, one way or the other, especially their depth. So come follow me on X and on those podcast platforms, and you'll get to see my opinion and so much more.
All right. Thanks so much, Armando.
Thank you so much, Gil.
Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. And if you and your significant other share expenses, this is a great way to stay on the same page. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the host of Locked On LA Kings and a host of Locked On NHL Game Night, Eddie Garcia. And Eddie, interesting season coming up for the LA Kings. Let's start with Anze Kopitar, because this is now officially his last go-round. What is his legacy with this team, and how important is it for him to go out on a high note?
Well, I think part of the reason why he's doing this now is he wants to go out on his own terms, right? He's on a team that is very likely going to be in the playoffs again, so he'll get to conclude his career with Stanley Cup playoff action, we think. He still has gas in the tank. Last year, he led the team in assists, and he was second on the team in points. So this is not a guy who is leaving because he isn't producing anymore. He could probably sign a 1 or a 2-year contract, and no one in Kingsland, no Kings fans would be very upset about that. And there would be kind of this transition to Quinton Byfield being the number 1 center, him maybe being the number 2 center, this maybe a little bit of a prolonged passing of the torch. But it's 20 years for him. And as he said, this is his 20th season. And as he said, he feels like it's just time. And he's got 2 young children, a little boy and a girl. And he says it's about time for him to start being a dad. He's had his career. He's won his 2 Stanley Cups. He's been a multiple Selke Trophy winner. And as far as his legacy with the Kings, some people might be surprised to hear me say this. I think he's the greatest Los Angeles King ever. Now, what does that mean? People can qualify that in different ways. Wayne Gretzky was probably the most influential player to ever wear a Kings jersey. I personally consider him more of an Edmonton Oiler than an LA King, even though he got me excited and interested in the NHL. But to me, the greatest player in a franchise history, to me, should be drafted by that team and play his entire career with that team and have some major team and individual success. He checks all those boxes. Marcel Dion, of course, he wasn't an original King. He came from another team. Luc Robitaille didn't play his entire career with the Kings, but I mean, they're great players, and they're certainly in the argument. But for me, Kopitar, 20 years, multiple cups, individual awards, drafted by the team, whole career with the team, captain of the team. I think he's the greatest LA King of all time.
Hockey Hall of Fame for sure.
I think so. But some people have asked me that who are not necessarily Kings fans. I do some other podcasts. I do an NHL podcast that, recaps the week in the NHL, and we have listeners from all over the place. And someone asked me that, is he a Hall of Famer? And I was taken aback by that question, but it does remind me, being on the West Coast, being a very understated guy, never says anything controversial, never was involved in anything. He's won the Lady Byng Trophy 3 times. So there's that. I'm a little saddened that his career has been, I believe, underappreciated. I think he's the West Coast Patrice Bergeron or Aleksander Barkov type of a guy. Maybe, I'm sure if he played in if he played in Chicago or New York or Toronto, his profile would be a lot higher. But people that know, he's definitely a Hall of Fame player.
I agree 100%. So be interesting to see the farewell tour, so to speak, and always wish him the best. He's always been a class act on and off the ice.
And Gil, I was a little surprised that he announced it before the season. I thought he would do a Dustin Brown and bow out quietly, at the end of the year. He said he wanted to get it out of the way. He didn't want to have the questions, and that's fair. He said it was a bit of a selfish move for him. Personally, I like it because I hope he gets some flowers in his final games across the NHL and gets a little recognition that he deserves. Very ironically, on his press conference when he announced this was his last year, it was also announced about an hour earlier that Dodger pitcher Clayton Kershaw was going to pitch his last. So even on the day that he announced it was going to be his last year, he got overshadowed. And that's just kind of Anze Kopitar. And I guarantee you, he didn't care one bit about that. He's always been fine being kind of in the shadows and just doing his thing. And the people who know, and that's all that matters to him.
What's going on right now with the contract negotiations with Adrian Kempe? Where does it stand, and what is the significance of where it stands?
Well, it's ongoing. Both sides appear to be saying all the right things. I think most importantly, Adrian Kempe is saying, I'm fine with it taking its time. Would I like it to get done before the season? Yes. He said he didn't call it a deadline, but he said he would really like to have it wrapped up before Christmas. And I think all of us as Kings fans would like it wrapped up well before that. For people that don't know, because I think Adrian Kempe is a bit of an underrated player around the league. Yeah. He's the Kings' best player. He is a player. A lot of Kings players have to be like this, and he definitely is. He's a very underrated defensive player. Does it on both ends of the ice, is a great finisher. And he, unlike Anze Kopitar, has a bit of an attitude. He has an edge to him. I'm not saying he's, going to go in like a bull in a China shop to the net, but he's not afraid to get his nose dirty. He has a little bit of a swagger to him, which is we enjoy because, again, not a lot of Kings players seem to have that. But he's a very important player, and he's still in his prime. So to me, this is a no-brainer. I know we've heard 10 million a year, maybe 11 million a year. The cap's going up. I think he's completely worth that and more. So apparently the last report we heard was that they weren't that close. So it isn't an issue for now because Kempe's saying it's okay. I'm not in a hurry. It sounds fine. But as it goes along, certainly Kings fans will be a little bit more and more worried.
How long do you think they're looking at? Do you think they'll go the max 8, or is he looking for something shorter?
Yeah, both sides have said they would like it to go 8. So it's the years are not the issue. It's the dollars per year that apparently is the issue right now.
We have another season coming up. Potentially, you don't want to see the Edmonton Oilers for the 5th straight year, or do you?
No. No.
What are the keys to success for the Kings this season, and who are some of the prospects or newer players who could impact that?
Well, there are not a lot of prospects. The Kings cupboard is a little bit bare, sadly, at the moment. So the future, the near future could be an issue, but we'll see. They're focused, though, on the now. There are 2 younger players who I think are going to be keys for the Kings, and that's Quinton Byfield, who is the 1A, 1B top line center with Anze Kopitar. When it's all said and done at the end of the year, he may get more minutes than Kopitar. So there's that transition that is kind of going on. And Brant Clark on defense. He had his first full season in the NHL last year. the coaching staff. He's an offensive defenseman in a sea of defensive defensemen for the Los Angeles Kings. He's, Doughty has that to his game as well, Drew Doughty, but he's really the young, dynamic kind of offensive defenseman that the Kings haven't really had in a while. So last year, the coaching staff challenged him, prove us you can fit into our defensive first scheme. Show us, we know what you can do offensively. Show us what you can do defensively. And the coaching staff has said, okay, he proved it to us. And the feeling is now we're taking the training wheels off. We're going to allow you, now that you've proven that you can get the job done defensively, we're now going to give you a little bit more rope to show what you can do offensively. So the hope amongst Kings fans, in addition to bringing back most of the team, is that Quinton Byfield and Brent Clark will take a decent step forward, and that will be part of the equation to helping the Kings have a better, I won't say a better season, because they actually tied their franchise record for wins and points in a season last year. So that's going to be hard to top, but to have a similar season, but taking the other step in the playoffs, and that's getting out of the first round. And I hope they don't face the Oilers again, because I've seen that movie before. I don't think anyone else wants to see it other than maybe Oilers fans. So we'll see.
Yeah. Oilers Kings 5 is not the sequel that Kings fans want.
No. Those sequels don't get better as they go along, it seems like. So
usually they do not.
No.
Eddie, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they can find the podcast and where they can find you on social media?
Yeah, of course. It's Locked On LA Kings. Gil, I always say make sure it's got the LA in there, because if you just put Locked On Kings, you're probably going to get an NBA team from Northern California. So Locked On LA Kings, wherever you get your podcasts in, on YouTube, and at Locked On LA Kings, as well as you can follow us on social media.
All right, Eddie, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet. Put down just $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I've built parlays, I've tried player props, and even followed the live lines during games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. So whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. That's FanDuel.com to get started today. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the host of Locked On Sabres, Joe DiBiase. And Joe, interesting offseason for the Sabres. A lot of movement, but a lot of questions out there from the national media. Is this team right now, heading into the season, in your opinion, better than the team was at the end of last season?
At the end of last season, I think it's tough for me to say yes. It's not impossible that they could be. They're going with a very clear plan to be better defensively, to limit scoring opportunities, and to just be a tougher team to play against. I think they may have gone too far. And, we'll get to JJ Peterka on that. They have subtracted some offense, and not even just this offseason, but going back multiple off seasons to where they were one of the 3 highest scoring teams in the National Hockey League. And little by little, they've been chipping away at those players that let Casey Middlestats and Victor Olofsson's, not the best players in the world, but good offensive players. Jeff Skinner, even, though he was a diminished version of what he was the last couple of years. Now Peterka, they've taken away a lot of offense. So we'll see. They're going to have to be really good at what they're trying to be, which is limit scoring opportunities, penalty kill, block shots, 4 lines deep that are not going to get abused in their own end. I just wonder if they're going to be in their own end too much. So I side with they probably are not going to be as good as last year, because I just don't think they're going to score enough goals. But if they stay healthy and they really figure out ways to limit the opposing teams, it's in there. Like, there's a potential that they could be better.
As somebody who covers a team that has thrived on limiting other teams' chances and just getting enough scoring to win in the Islanders, it's not an easy model to succeed with, but it can be done.
Yeah, that's the team I think about a lot. And no offense, like, I don't really know if it's the right blueprint to pick out in the league of, oh, I really want to be the New York Islanders. Now, listen, if there's one team in the league that maybe could make that defense, it is this one. Because sure, that formula is not going to win you Stanley Cups. Like, it just flatly is not. But can you make the playoffs that way? Can you get close games to overtime and bank points that way and just be in every single game and have that be your formula to being in it, being in the race? Because the one thing the Islanders are every single year is they are in the race, at least. I mean, there are some years in there where, of course, they'll even win a round or two. I know it's been a couple years, but that's not too far in the distant past. So, again, I don't know how much you want to strive to be like that, but this team is just trying to break the playoff drought. They're not thinking Stanley Cup. They're thinking get to the postseason, get that monkey off your back. And we have seen teams do it this way. I just think it's a really, tight window to thread a needle through.
Yeah, it's a narrow path to try to walk for sure. And I mean, we mentioned Peterka.
Mm-hmm.
Is there enough scoring without him? I mean, you may not be able to match what he could produce, but is there enough scoring to win enough games?
It's a really good question, and that's kind of where my biggest piece of skepticism with them has been all off season is they really never replaced that. And I kind of think they wanted to. I think they wanted to take Bo Byram or take some other pieces and find that top six forward, and it just never really happened. So now they're hiding behind, well, we are expecting the internal growth to take that over. And okay, like that could happen, but a lot of these failed seasons the Sabres have had is waiting for internal growth that either takes too long or it never comes in the first place. I think the most optimistic signs, though, are that Zach Benson at 20 years old, going into his third year, a guy who made the league at 18 that wasn't supposed to, made the league at 18 having nothing to do with his offense. That's why he was drafted in the first round. He made the team because of his hockey IQ and his ability as a defensive forward. There are advanced metrics from last year, defensive EVO. Like there's a couple of different, like real fancy numbers that point to Benson being one of the best defensive forwards in hockey already. Well, now he's going to the top line. Now it's, all right, you've made your mark. You've been a penalty killer. You've been a great two-way forward, even as a teenager. But now we need you to start producing some offense. Last year, it was 28 points. A 28-point teenager is going to the top line. Who knows how that's going to go? Preseason and training camp, it's looked awesome so far. So maybe that translates to the regular season. But that's kind of where their hopes are lying, I think. It's a lot on the shoulders of a 20-year-old that sure has 2 seasons of NHL experience now, but I think that's a lot for him. And behind that, you're hoping that Jack Quinn could take a big step up, Yuri Kulik. Like, it's not just Benson, but I think he's definitely the number one hope that they have to replace Peterka's offense.
Who are some of the prospects that are either ready to make the jump to the NHL or close to it?
I would Consta Helenius, first round pick from last season, 2024. I think he is probably at a point where he's one of the first call-ups. Maybe he is the first call-up to start the year. I think really if the Sabres were in a different place as a franchise 5 years ago, maybe he would have a shot to make the team. He's been great in training camp. He scored a couple of goals in preseason. He's been playing with NHL guys in the preseason. I just don't think they're going to put another teenager on the roster. So it's kind of tough for him. Like, he could even earn a spot, and I don't think they'll give it to him because they just can only have so many 19, 20-year-olds be asked to come in and play big roles. So he's getting there. He's very close. Noah Ostlund, another first-round pick forward from a couple of years ago, took a giant step forward last season. AHL Player of the Month. He earned a call-up later in the year. So same thing. He's probably at a point where he's a call-up. There's really nobody, though, that is taking the big step from Rochester last year or draft pick to they're in the NHL club right away. There's these guys that are close, but really, like, I might even go back to Benson, 20 years old, like, that's the prospect, if you're allowed to even label him that. He's got the age for it, but he's played a lot of games that I think they're hoping takes the big step. But otherwise, they're just hoping that these guys keep taking steps up in the pipeline.
If you're hoping to win a lot of 2-1, 3-2 games, if that's your formula, you have to have great goaltending. How confident are you in the Sabres goaltending right now?
This is one where I'm kind of off the beaten path a little bit here in Buffalo with this, because I think if you find someone that's optimistic about the Sabres' chances, I think a lot of it has to do with their blue line. And I think their blue line's good. Like the Michael Kesselring addition, they finally found a partner for Owen Power, even though I think they probably paid too much for it, which was trading Peterka, but they got it. They needed a right shot defenseman to play with Owen Power, and they got there. So, okay, great. Like blue line looks really good. The goaltending piece, they've not had good goaltending in a decade. Like little credit to Linus Ullmark, actually. So maybe not a full decade, a couple of years in the middle there, where when Linus Ullmark could stay healthy for them, he was a good number one goalie. Not as good as he was in Boston, but he was good. So other than those 2-3 years, they've had nothing. They've been searching for it. They make the playoffs 3 years ago if they just had a league average goalie. They have not had that consistently. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen had one good year, and otherwise in his NHL career, it hasn't really happened. So while he might still be penciled in as the number one, the reason I'm optimistic is they have a plan B. They've not had a plan B. Their plan B before has been rookies, been Devin Levi at 20, 21, and we know how hard it is for goalies to become regulars in the NHL at that young of an age. It takes longer at that position. And beyond that, it's been like waiver guys, like claiming James Reimer off waivers last year, or Craig Anderson half retired a couple of years ago. And those guys have even given them some good games, but they're old. They can only play so much. They can't play 40, 50 games if Luukkonen doesn't perform. They went out and signed Alex Lyon. Alex Lyon's not the biggest name in the world. He's not going to go win a Vezina trophy, but that's an NHL goalie that helped Florida make the playoffs a couple of years ago. He had good numbers in Detroit. Not great, but good numbers in Detroit. That gives you another option. Alex Gorgiev, who is coming off a horrible year in San Jose and Colorado, but is only a couple of years removed from solid seasons in Colorado, a few more removed from the really good years in New York. They got 3 dart throws. 3 dart throws at the position, 3 veterans at the position. And I guess I'm just hoping that the odds pay off there, that one of the 3 is going to give them better goaltending than they've had in each of the last 2 years, especially.
We'll see. It should be an interesting year up in Buffalo. Joe, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
Definitely. You can follow me on Twitter at Sneaky Joe Sports if you could deal with some Bills tweets along the way as well. Sometimes those are more fun anyway. And then also you can check out the podcast wherever you're listening to podcasts. We've got our text club as well. If you listen, you can find the details on that. So, yeah, a lot of fun heading into the season here.
All right, Joe, thanks so much.
Thanks, Gil.
Thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen every day. For your second listen, go find Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Steele Roden and Flip Livingston provide daily fantasy tips to you to give you the edge over your league mates, all while making you a smarter hockey fan. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank my guests, Armando Velez of Locked On Florida Panthers, Eddie Garcia of Locked On LA Kings, and Joe DiBiase of Locked On Buffalo Sabres for joining me today. I'm Gil Martin. I host the Monday edition of Locked On NHL, and I co-host the Friday edition along with Rachel Donner. Don't forget, we are here every day, Monday through Saturday, bringing you the biggest stories from around the hockey world. So hit the like button and subscribe to Locked On NHL so you never miss an episode. Have a great day, everybody. Stay safe, and thanks so much for listening to and watching the Locked On NHL podcast.